All righty. Good evening. We're here. The Washington County Quorum Court is now called to order. Happy May 20th. We will go ahead and get started. We will have J.P. Simon. Will you lead us in prayer and pledge? Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, J.P. Simon. All right, we'll go ahead to item 3, the adoption of the agenda. Is there a motion? Any changes to the agenda? Is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
We have a motion to adopt the agenda. Second? Second. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? All right, the agenda has been adopted. Item 4, are there any preliminary motions? And this is normally where we would have someone move to read by title and resolutions and ordinances by title only. J.P. Lemming? We have a motion to read by ordinances by resolutions and ordinances by title only.
Second.
And a second by J.P. Duncan. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we have the preliminary motions taken care of. Citizen comments. At this point, we will have citizen comments. Again, the County Ordinance 2016 allows us to have a total of 15 minutes for comments. Each citizen will have 3 minutes to share with us. So with that, tell us your name and where you're from, and then you can go. Good evening.
Good evening. Josh Moody, Fayetteville, Arkansas. Congratulations, Judge Wood, on your decision to run for Lieutenant Governor, and good luck in your campaign. I would also like to thank the court for passing the ordinance last month to give much-needed raises to most JDC staff positions. It is one good step in the right direction. If we are going to invest in our county's future, it makes perfect sense to invest in those who work closest with that future, our children. As many of you may remember, I teach at JDC. In my role, I am able to have an outsider's perspective on the inner workings of that facility, as well as some of the county's overall governance. 10 days ago, last Monday, Judge Wood and Attorney Lester responded to a plea from JDC by giving each staff member an opportunity to share safety concerns due to the facility being severely understaffed. While 19 members equal full staff, there are currently only 8 plus 1 trainee. Do the math. It is a triage situation, at least in the short term, leading to understaffed shifts and burnout. It is my understanding that you assured them that you would have solutions for them by last Friday, 6 days ago. It is also my understanding that they have yet to hear from you. Evidently, you have bigger fish to fry. In the meantime, this is an urgent situation that may require drastic measures. Now let's talk about tonight's agenda. The last 2 items are about giving an attorney an annual $20,000 raise while also thanking most of the county's detention staff with a one-time bonus of up to $1,300 for risking their health and their family's health throughout the past year's pandemic. The timing of these 2 ordinances seems tone-deaf and incongruent. I understand wanting to increase the salary in order to compete locally, but also believe that he would not have taken the job to begin with if that were his primary concern. In fact, I believe his position has increased his public profile in invaluable ways, all while having the option of working remotely. Meanwhile, JDC and county jail staff, deputies, had no choice but to show up in person, day in and day out, to do thankless jobs in somewhat unsafe conditions in the best of times, and COVID was always lurking, sometimes quite loudly, and may still be. Which of these jobs revolves around constantly keeping our county safe? Which of these has always had a high turnover rate and needs higher wages in order to maintain both a fully trained staff at all times, as well as safety for both those working and those incarcerated? These conversations happening simultaneously may make a much-needed thank you also feel like a slap in the face. On to the first item of the evening. All of the JPs were duly elected. It makes sense that all of them should have a voice when discussing how to spend their constituents' tax dollars. With a supermajority, those who are in power will likely to continue to have their way. But that does not mean they should do so without thorough debate and open discussion. Elections have consequences, and that power may not last forever. Please work together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Moody. Public comments.
Hi, Sarah Moore, Fayetteville, Arkansas. I wanted to talk to two items tonight. One of those being there are several items on the agenda that are in regard to spending against our CARES money that we've had in our coffer since November of 2020. Over the last handful of months, we've had many different discussions and ordinances that have come forward to potentially spend this money. Tonight we have the opportunity, it looks like, to possibly do something with filtration, as well as rewarding our detention center staff with a one-time bonus because of their service during the pandemic. I really would ask everyone to pause and not go forward on these items tonight. I think that as a community, we need to have a conversation about what we should spend all of the CARES monies for. And I think that every county employee has shown up and put themselves at risk and is equally as deserving as our staff in the detention center of a bonus. And so my question really is, how much would it cost across the board, and have we evaluated and put the numbers together on what an incentive would be for all county staff to applaud them for their efforts during COVID before we just move and center out just a certain amount of staff. Additionally, we have done piecemeal different projects that have taken CARES money, and my concern is this will get nickeled and dimed to the point that we will deplete these funds without being fully strategic about it. And so I'm really saying, again, let's pause and let's talk about all the different things that have come up, the potential for court changes that need to happen in the courtrooms, the potential for helping with additional housing needs in the community, small businesses has come up, as well as food insecurity. And so additionally, the second item I wanted to bring up tonight was in this room, you won't see as many community members present as we've been having in the hybrid remote meetings that were happening when Zoom was offered. There may be some folks trying to access the YouTube tonight, but unfortunately through that technology, they cannot give any feedback or participate in public comment or any comments around each of the ordinances. I would really like to ask that in the new age that we are with technology and all the learnings that we've had during the pandemic, of what an online platform does, that it enfranchises more of our community members to be a part of the conversation. I would hope that we would welcome that, and I would ask that we have a discussion as a whole court to discuss whether or not that's something we probably should look at investing in. We did in 2020, some of the new JPs weren't a part of this, but we did put some investments into this courtroom with these microphones and other technologies to improve that kind of technology for us to be doing the online platform. And I think that that technology, or I'm sorry, that improvement that we made to the court, we should think about the fact that that is going to be an ongoing thing that's available and could easily facilitate us using this online platform. So I'm just asking that be added at some point on the agenda, because I think that that would allow people that are struggling with their immune systems, transportation, childcare to participate more fully. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Moore. Public comments. Public comments.
Yes, my name's Lou Reed Sharp. I'm from Springdale, Arkansas. I wanted to speak tonight because last week I watched the Personnel and the Finance and Budget Committee meetings, and I just really felt like I needed to speak up because the county attorney's raise didn't come up in the Personnel Committee, but then in the Finance and Budget Committee it came up. But the chair of that meeting was not so neutral in listening to J.P. Madison with her concerns. And so I just feel like I need to speak up because we are the minority. And if you're not listening to our JPs, then how are our voices going to be heard unless we have the opportunity to speak? I have major concerns about the ethics of the county attorney serving as chief of staff, controlling the agenda and the mute button, and being the chair of the Republican Party. There is a conflict. Regardless of whether it's legal or not, in the public eye, this doesn't look so good. Specifically, silencing the minority using rules and procedures is not fair. I went and looked up what a county attorney's responsibilities were. And in section 2-167-2-170, division 80, the county attorney, it says on the website, is to represent the county's interest in all legal matters and proceedings, nor shall such interfere or conflict with his day-to-day duties as a county attorney. For instance, one of the questions I thought is, why did the $19,000 raise come up? Not in personnel, but in finance and budget. Are we just looking at sneaking things through? The county attorney is currently making $83,000 a year. You can just Google it. The national average is $79,000. We have a significant number of employees making less than $15 an hour that have been hit very, very hard during the pandemic, as all families have. As a tax-paying citizen of Washington County, I have serious concerns about the county attorney having so much power. The county attorney serves the citizens, not the Republican Party agenda of Washington County. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Public comments.
Thank you, Judge Wood, and all justices of peace. My comment also is about agenda item number 22, the raise for the county attorney. And I don't want to come across as, I'm not picking on County Attorney Lester. I don't want to come across that way. I'm not saying anything about him here. I'm just saying I don't think this ordinance is fair, and I'm worried about how it's going to affect the morale of many county employees. We have 127 employees in Washington County who make less than $15 an hour. They make around $11 or $12 an hour. That's not a livable wage. I'd like for you to, for just a moment, to put yourself in their shoes and think how you would feel if you were working, say, in the road department and you were driving a backhoe or whatever. You were doing your job to the best of your ability with the skills that you had. Now, Mr. Lester has a law degree and he has experience in county government. Those are his tools. Well, your tools would be you've been trained in your job. You can operate that backhoe. You come to work every day and you're dedicated and you want to do the job to the best of your ability. How are you going to feel if you see someone else in the county government get almost a $20,000 raise? I know how I would feel. I would be hurt. I would feel like I wasn't appreciated, even though I was doing the best I could do with the abilities that I had. Last year, Washington County lost 127 employees. For whatever reason, I don't have that data because only a very few turned in their exit interviews when they left their county. Mr. Harlan has helped me gather that information, and I appreciate that. So far this year, through April 30th, 55 employees have left the county employment. That cost the county hundreds of thousands of dollars in hiring and retraining employees, and I don't know how you measure the loss of a dedicated employee who really is working with all their heart to do the best job they can do. So I ask tonight that you please think about and table this ordinance and give it to the Personnel Committee. I think our Personnel Committee is off to a great start. Chairman Ecke is doing a great job with her committee. They can look into this and they can hire people to help them. They can come up with a way where we can do this fairly for everybody. And that's what I would like to see you do, so just to, be fair across the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Coker. Public comments. Public comments. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead to item 6, the approval of the minutes. You got a motion to approve the minutes? That's J.P. Rios, Stafford Rios. We have a second?
Motion to approve the minutes?
I think that's it.
Motion isn't required, right?
Yeah, that's fine. Go ahead, J.P.
Thank
Ecke.
you,
You
Judge.
second?
Well, I don't know if the motion was
Was
made,
that-
but motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, so.
Motion to approve the minutes.
All right, I need a second to approve the minutes, and got a motion and a second to approve the minutes. All in favor? All right, we'll move on. Any opposed? All right, the minutes have been approved. County Judge's Report, you have a disposal of property report in your agenda, and the Association of Counties will be hosting the annual conference this year in Benton County in August, August 18th through the 20th. Ms. Patty has asked that if you are interested in attending, going up to Benton County for the annual conference, please let her know so she can help get you guys registered. Again, that's going to be August 18th through the 20th. And again, Ms. Patty would ask that you guys connect with her to help you get you registered if you're interested. With that, item 8. Counselor, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance amending ordinance 2021-01 to revise the standing committees of the Quorum Court for the 2021-22 term and for other purposes.
And J.P. Madison? Are you on?
I think I am now. Thank you, Judge. This is on its third reading, and I thought it was important to just go ahead and have the discussion and the vote on the same night about this important issue. For as long as I've been on the court, and I think probably for decades beyond that, the entire Quorum Court has been involved in our budget and finance process. When I came on the court in 2001, the Budget and Finance Committees were actually separated, and the Budget Committee was a committee of the whole, but the Finance Committee only had 6 people. At that time, we only had 13 JPs. And in many ways, it seemed like a miss to have 6 people decide the day-to-day throughout the year issues and 12 people decide the budget. And so we made an effort to combine those committees into one committee that was responsible for the finances of the county, where each JP had a discussion, had a vote in that discussion process. There was a period when the state law changed and said that the Quorum Court didn't have the power to make a committee of the whole. The judge had to approve that. And so when we tried to make the Budget and Finance Committee a committee of the whole, the then county judge, Judge Edwards, did not want to do that. And so in reaction, the Quorum Court disbanded the committee because they felt that it was more important to have everyone involved in the budget and finance process than to leave that to a minority of the court. I think many people who are JPs, who've served as JPs, whether here and in other counties, will say that the finances of the county are the most important job that we have. We're legislators, but we don't do a whole lot of legislation other than the budget. And I was very surprised in January, without any discussion, without any warning, the committee was reduced from a committee of the whole to a committee of 7. And not only is that committee being conducted just with 7 of the JPs, the rest of us have actually been demoted. We have to sit in the audience. We cannot participate at the horseshoe like we have in the past with other committees. No other committee is acting like that. But for those of you who watched the Zoom meeting where that happened, we actually were suddenly demoted in the Zoom meeting to where we weren't even participants in the meeting. That's shocking, and that's not the best way to manage government or to manage our budget. And I think this body should be the body that decides how we do the county's budget. And we should decide if the majority wants to relegate their authority to the minority, then that's their prerogative. But this body should decide. And I just wanted to tell you about some of the processes that are going to happen. This week, the chairman of the Budget and Finance Committee sent an email out with a letter to everybody asking them to get their budgets in by June, which for those of us who've been on the court a while know that the sooner you start, it sort of ends up being a disaster because it's very hard to do a budget for next year in June. But nevertheless, we've all been there and tried different things, and that's okay. But this was the part of the letter that caught my attention. One member of the Budget and Finance Committee has decided this. Do not include any employee compensation raise amounts, including the sheriff's step raises, in your submitted budget requests. Those will be deliberated and considered separately by the Quorum Court, except they won't. They won't be decided by the Quorum Court. They'll be decided by the Budget Committee of 7. I was the sponsor of the ordinance that passed the sheriff's step plan. That is ordinance. To reverse an ordinance, you have to have an ordinance. A budget committee of 7 should not sit there and decide that we will not give our law enforcement officers the step raise that they are entitled to under county ordinance. And so I would move to pass this ordinance to eliminate the Budget and Finance Committee so that Judge Wood can be the chair and we can discuss the entire Budget and Finance Committee as a whole. Thank you.
Got a motion to pass? And a second. Discussion? J.P. Pine?
I have a question for you, Judge Wood. Is the Finance and Budget Committee passing anything along by ordinance that does not have to come to the full quorum court?
All committees, anything that comes out of committee has to go to the full quorum court.
Okay.
Especially if it's going to deal with
I'm not on that committee, but I do have the opportunity to come forward to the microphone and carry on discussions with the members of that committee. You know, it's my understanding that as we sit in the audience during that committee, that avoids possibly some confusion for the chair as to who's on the committee or who's not, or who gets to speak first or not. That is the privilege of the chair of that committee. But I want to make sure that people know that whatever comes out of that committee, if it's going to be passed as an ordinance, it requires my vote. I can either vote yes or no. Thank you.
Thank you, but J.P. Pine. Questions? J.P. Deacons? Oh,
Thank
there you
you,
go.
Judge Wood. I want to say one thing because some of the members here have a tendency of saying things that are completely untrue. I am the chair of the Finance and Budget Committee, and in no way will I ever make a decision unilaterally as the chair. Now, that quote lifted from the letter I sent out to all the elected officials is true, and I've spoken to Sheriff Hilder about it. I'm not making a decision about the step raises. What I'm trying to do is give us clean, vanilla budgets to look at so we can compare them year over year. And in previous years, there's been confusion about some people have included raises and some people haven't. Now, I don't want to jump down this rabbit hole. Sometimes you have to respond when something is so crazy and untrue. But here's the final thing I will say to you guys. I've promised each and every one of you, you have a voice on the committee if you want one. Everyone on the full quorum court eventually has a vote. I'm dead set and dedicated on keeping order in that committee and making it fair. Most importantly, for the elected officials and the department heads that have to come before that body. Everyone I talk to says they don't want to come to quorum court because things get out of control and they feel threatened or offended in some way. Order has to be in that committee. That's what I've promised each and every one of our elected officials because I want them to feel welcome to come to our committee and have a conversation with us and tell us about their departments and things like that. So that is my dedicated promise to each and every one of you. That's what I'm set out to do, and that's what I'm going to do as budget chair. Thank you very much.
Thank you, J.P. Deacons. Discussion? J.P. Lemming?
Is there any way anyone can tell us kind of why we decided to go that way? Whose choice and why?
Well. Again, that call is mine. That's still, yeah. That call is mine, and after 4.5, 5 years of doing it that way, I said I wanted to try something different, and that's what I did. Discussion. All right, public comments?
Judge, I had my microphone on.
Oh, J.P. Madison.
I just wanted to say, despite the chairman of the Budget Committee's professed sincerity, his actual quote from his first meeting was that his goal was to end advocacy in his committee. And then as Ms. Sharp pointed out, when I had to sit at the podium, not as a equal to the members on the committee, I was deemed out of order because he didn't like what I said. He said it was not an appropriate comment, and he turned off my microphone. And let me ask you, if I'm sitting there as a JP or I'm sitting there as a member of the public, do you think that whoever is in that chair should decide whether the content of what I'm saying is appropriate or not? No, absolutely not. If any place the First Amendment should matter, it's right here in what citizens tell us and what we tell each other. And so to have the chairman of the committee expressly say he wants to end advocacy, and then when he disagrees with what someone says to turn off their microphone, I don't think that's sincere. And if this body wants to give their authority to that person, then that person will make sure that what comes to the full quorum court for a vote will be what he wants. We won't get to vote on everything that the committee considers. We will only get to vote on the budget package as a whole. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you, J.P. Madison. Public comments. One moment, Ms. Reed. J.P. Rios.
Thank you, Judge. I just wanted to point out the Budget Committee isn't our only committee. We have multiple committees, but there's only one committee, it seems like, where shouting matches break out. Keeping order is one thing, but our other committee chairs keep order just fine without ruling their committee with an iron fist. And so I really think that the Budget Committee, the rules that they've put in place weren't voted on by the Budget Committee. They were sort of unilaterally imposed by the chair. And so I think that the way that the Budget Committee currently is needs a complete rethink, and that's part of why I'm in favor of this ordinance.
Thank you, J.P. Rios. Stafford Rios. Any other discussion? Okay, now we're going to public comments. Ms. Reed, I'm sorry, go ahead.
That's fine. Again, my name's Lou Reed Sharp. I'm from Springdale, Arkansas. And I just wanted to, I've been in a lot of budget meetings, and a lot of committees, and served on many, many boards and corporation, facilities. But if something doesn't make it through committee, it's never going to go to the quorum court, and that is my biggest concern. You can have a committee meeting, say a budget committee of a hospital, and all the departments heads come in and everything gets discussed, and maybe they want to give a raise to all the secretaries or ward clerks or something like that. But if the committee won't allow that conversation to proceed to the quorum court, it's dead in the water. Nobody has a chance then to talk about it. And that's my biggest concern, is that it's dead. And then it's not going to get addressed again. So, thank you.
Public comments. Public comments. All right, Ms. Patty.
Lisa Ecke? No. Sam Duncan? No. Chandra Washington? Yes. Eva Madison? Yes. Robert Dennis? No. Suki Hires? Evelyn Rios Stafford? Yes. Willie Lemming? Yes. Jim Wilson? No. Butch Pond? Yeah, no. I'm sorry. No. Lance Johnson? No. Shannon Marty? No. Sean Simons? No. Bill Ussery? No. Patrick Deakins? No. I have 10 for, 4 against, and 1 absent, so it passes, or it fails, sorry.
All right, Ms.
Did that
Patty,
wrong.
thank you. That ordinance fails. We'll go on to item 9. JP, Counsel, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
And that would be JP Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I'd like to make a motion that we suspend the rules and take this to the third and final reading.
There's a motion to suspend the rules to read for a third and final. Is there a second? And a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, council, will you read that for a third and final?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
J.P. Deacons?
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is an RV park that had come before the court before. It is in close proximity to the lake. Due to some edits that they made to their conditional use permit, my understanding in talking to the planning staff was that they moved some of this is going to be in 3 phases. This is a CUP that covers the first phase. They have moved their lots further away from the lake to try to accommodate some of the concerns of the lake. And then the next few phases will have to come, phase 2 and 3 will have to come back before the planning board. So I feel it proper I make a motion to pass this ordinance.
There's a motion to move and pass the ordinance, item 9, a second by J.P. Duncan. Discussion? Any discussion? J.P. Pine?
Now, here we
J.P.
go.
Pine.
Wrong button. I just have one question. As the changes have been made, how many lots per acre are on this development?
There you go. J.P. Deacons?
I'm not sure per acre. The whole park will be 104 acres after all 3 phases, if they move through all 3 phases. And there's 111 spaces 111 total spaces. So I'm not sure what this first phase lot per acre is. Maybe the planning staff will have, I believe Nick's out in the audience. He might be able to answer that more detailed.
Nick Little, planning staff. The phase 1 is 5 acres, 18 total spaces. The project as a whole, which the CUP is for, is 111 total spaces. Phase 1 had to go through large scale. It was approved by the planning board for preliminary large scale. It'll have to come back for final after construction. Each phase 1, 2, and 3, 2 and 3 not yet coming to the planning board will have to come for preliminary and final large-scale approval.
How many acres total in the whole park?
The whole thing,
10 acres?
no, the total acreage of the entire project was pretty large. It was 100 plus. 140 total. Yeah, all of the parcels combined that make up this property was, about 140 acres.
Thanks, Nick.
Yes, sir.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Or did we do did we get a first and second? Okay, public comments. Public comments?
I'm Daniel Asmy with ESI. We developed the plans for the project, and if you have any questions about it, I'd be happy to address those.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Ms. Patty? Right here. Oh. J.P. Stafford Rios?
Sure. I just wanted to ask, since there's a question for that, are there any environmental concerns around this project, and have those been addressed?
Come on.
Daniel Asmy again with ESI. The original CUP that we put in for at the end of 2019 had all the RV spaces very close to Beaver Lake, and some of the septic field locations and spaces were on a slope that flowed directly down into the lake. So Beaver Water District and Springdale Water were concerned about runoff directly into the lake. So we've shifted all the actual RV spaces, especially this phase 1, way over to the right to Nob Hill Loop, to an area that's way far removed from the lake, further than the current RV park that's in operation right there. And I think between that and our septic design that's still being looked at by the health department, we've addressed all those concerns.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Any other public comments? Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke? Yes. Sam Duncan? Yes. Chandra Washington? Eva Madison? Yes. Robert Dennis? Yes. Suki Hires? Evelyn Rios Stafford? Yes. Willie Lemming? No. Jim Wilson? Yes. Butch Pond? Abstain. Lance Johnson? Yes. Shannon Marty? Yes. Sean Simons? Yes. Bill Usry? Yes. Patrick Deakins?
Yes.
I have 11 for, 1 no, and 2 abstentions, so it passes.
Item 9 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. We'll move on to item 10. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $332,206.34 from the Coronavirus Relief Fund 1005 to various line items in the Buildings and Grounds budget 1000108 for 2021.
J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I continue to believe that this item's time sensitive, so therefore I make a motion that we suspend the rules and move it to the third and final reading.
There's a motion to move, suspend the rules and move to the third and final, second by J.P. Duncan. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No. Ms. Patty, will you take a roll?
Lisa Ecke? Yes. Sam Duncan? Yes. Chandra Washington? No. Eva Madison? No. Robert Dennis? Yes. Suki Hires? Evelyn Rios Stafford? Willie Lemming? No. Jim Wilson? Butch Pond? Yes. Lance Johnson? Yes. Shannon Marty? Yes. Sean Simons? Yes. Bill Usry? Yes. Patrick Deakins?
Yes.
I have 10 for, 3 noes, and 1 abstention, so it passes.
All right, so Council, will you go ahead and read that one for a third and final?
An ordinance appropriating $332,206.34 from the Coronavirus Relief Fund 1005 to various line items in the Buildings and Grounds budget 1000108 for 2021.
J.P. Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This satisfies 3 major concerns we have as we continue to work through the pandemic. This is going to add air purification systems to our county buildings. It's going to add touchless fixtures to our restrooms. And then probably most importantly in my mind, it's going to retrofit the Circuit Court 6 courtroom to make it compliant for distancing and those types of things. I believe there's a letter from Judge Lindsay in the packet in support of this, so I move passage of this item.
Yeah. Got a motion to pass and a second by J.P. Pond. Discussion. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge.
And then J.P. Stafford Rios.
I remain convinced that we should vote on these 3 items separately because they're distinct and there's different sentiments about them. So I'd move to sever Judge Lindsay's courtroom from the touchless fixtures from the ionizers so that we can vote on each 3 separately.
All right, so there's a motion to sever the ordinance. Is there a second? And a second by J.P. Washington. Motion on the floor to sever the ordinance separate, and the second by J.P. Washington. All in favor? Those opposed? No. All right, the noes have it. J.P. Stafford?
Sure. I just wanted to let it be known that if the ordinance as is, I'm going to have to abstain from being part of the discussion or voting on it because I have a a potential perceived conflict of interest that's come up since the last meeting. And I just wanted to note that I think this is the first time since I've been on this quorum court that anybody has abstained from a vote because of potential conflict of interest. And I really think that as a quorum court, we need to be doing more of that because there's been a lot of questions around conflict of interest in previous quorum court meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Real Stafford. JP Lemming.
Thank you, Judge. I just have, did any of this get bidded out? I thought after we spent over $20,000, we had to bid on all this.
Those are just estimates.
Huh?
They're just estimates.
Say that again?
They're just estimates, no contract.
No contracts? And in these HVACs in here, I think if we'll go back in our Johnson Control deal, somehow or another, that was left out, and I think we're trying to put this back in here somehow. I just don't feel like this is, I think the HVACs was left out in the Johnson Controls, and somewhere or another there was a amendment, but it just didn't get put back in. I think we're trying to cover up some stuff that happened there. Is that true or not true?
I don't think that's accurate, but that may be how you read it. I don't see it that way.
Okay. There's just a lot of questions about all this stuff, and I can't vote for it right now. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Lemming. JP Madison.
Thank you, Judge. While I'm in support of the concept of touchless features on the fixtures in our bathrooms, I share JP Lemming's concerns that somehow that seems duplicative of the money that we were spending on Johnson Controls. I remain supportive of the funding for Judge Lindsay's courtroom, and I have shared that with the judge and explained to him that it didn't pass last time because the court was unwilling to sever it, which is why it is now being heard tonight instead of having the benefit of that funding having been approved and work done on his courtroom for the past month. I do remain concerned that we've heard nothing for the other courtrooms because they're in the same situation as Judge Lindsay. And then finally, I have to say, there's been a lot of talk about the concern about the ionizers. So I spoke to someone who owns a commercial cleaning business and asked for her input on the ionizers. And the input back was that they cause considerable breathing difficulties for individuals with COPD or asthma. And they have been shown to cause problems in the workplace. And that the most effective way to deal with COVID filtration in air systems is through HEPA filters, and that's the preferred method. And so I'm frustrated that there's been this emphasis on ionizers that haven't really been tested fully in a workplace setting, when I think HEPA filters would probably have fulfilled the same purpose and have been safe. And so I can't support the ordinance because of the pieces of it I don't like, even though I like some part of it. But I can't imagine that we would spend the amount of money we're talking about spending on ionizers to cause breathing difficulties for our employees who already have breathing difficulties. That's concerning. So thank you, Judge.
Any other discussion? JP Lemming.
Thank you, Judge. We was talking about the ionizers. I read in here on the warranty on the HVACs that the ionizer was installed, the warranties wouldn't be no good. So that's another reason that you don't want the ionizers.
All right, JP Lemming. Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments?
Thank you, Judge Wood and Quorum Court. I know I've probably flooded everyone this week with a lot of information about the ionizers, but I'm really concerned about that. And I haven't been able to get even an answer as to how we came up with the number, because the number in the ordinance, 332,206.34, doesn't equal the totals that are on the estimates or proposals that are in the agenda. But most of all, I'm concerned about the ionizers because of what JP Madison just said. But let me elaborate a little bit on that. There's studies that show they produce ozone and other pollutants. And another of my concerns is that The Global Plasma Solutions, Inc., GPS, which manufactures these needle-point ionizers, has been named as a defendant in a lawsuit in federal court in Delaware, where the plaintiff seeks to be certified as a class action cause, alleging that GPS engaged in false and misleading representations as to the effectiveness and safety of its ionizers, including false statements that NPIs do not produce ozone. And the NPIs, like I think I said this, the ones we're looking at were manufactured by GPS. In one part of the complaint, when they talk about how the GPS conducted the studies to where they came up with their data, in one instance, they used a shoebox to test whether or not their ionizers could reduce the pollutants in the air. And they also, in another instance, they blasted the testing chambers with 27,000 ions per cubic centimeter, which is far in excess than would ever be in an office or a room where the ionizers were installed. With regard to the schools and other institutions, local institutions that Mr. Gonzalez told me were here in this area, we're installing ionizers, I've reached out to a couple of them. And Ms. Moore has too. We've been waiting to hear back about what information they had when they bought the ionizers, but we can't really evaluate whether or not that's a good measure to use, because we don't know how long they've been installed, if they're working. We don't know what tests have been conducted to see how they're cleaning the air. And until we have that information, just because they're doing it doesn't mean that we have to do it. Let me think what else I had on that. So it's hard for me to reconcile when we have the Environmental Protection Agency of the United States of America telling us that these ionizers they don't have sufficient data to tell us whether or not they work or whether or not they're going to harm. So it's hard for me to reconcile with with going forward with this other information that we have, why we should be doing this now. I would like to see us table this, but I would also like to see what J.P. Madison said, if we could separate these issues, because I know that Judge Lindsey's courtroom needs to be fixed so he can be having court, and I'd like to see that done. But I think we need to step back and look at this and be sure, because we don't want to spend all this money and then fund out.
Go ahead and wrap it.
Thank you.
Okay. That's in the final public comments. We'll go ahead, Ms. Patty, and take your roll.
Lisa Ecke? Yes. Sam Duncan?
Yes.
Chandra Washington? No. Eva Madison? No. Robert Dennis? Yes. Suki Hires? Evelyn Rios Stafford? Willie Lemming? No. Jim Wilson? Yes. Butch Pond? Yes. Lance Johnson? Yes. Shannon Marty? Yes. Sean Simons? Yes. Bill Usry? Yes. Patrick Deakins?
Yes.
I have 10 for, 3 against, 1 abstention. It passes.
All right. Item 10 passes. We'll move on to item 11. Item 11 is new business. Counselor, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
J.P. Duncan. You okay back there? You okay? Okay.
So this is a CUP that went through the planning board and passed by all members there that were present. So it's 1.22 acres, and they're looking to do essentially a lot split or add a second home to the property. Just to remind everyone, the county is zoned 1 residential home per acre or agricultural. Because you're attempting to add a home, this would be 0.6 acres per home, so therefore we have to have a CUP. No contention, and doesn't seem like any backlash from neighbors, so I move that we pass item number 11.
This is on this first reading, and so if there's not a suspension of rules, we'll just go on to next month's agenda.
Second.
All right, there's a motion to suspend the rules and move on to second reading. All in favor? And a second. All in favor? All in favor, I'm sorry. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, Council, will you read that one?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
We have a motion and a second to suspend the rules, move to a third and final reading. All in favor? Those opposed? Council, will you read that one for third and final?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
J.P. Duncan.
Judge, I move we pass item number 11.
There's a motion to pass item 11 and a second by J.P. Pond. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Oh, sorry. J.P. Rios.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I'm very much in favor of the idea behind this. Washington County, as a whole, we are one of the fastest growing counties in the nation, and we're gonna before we know it, we're gonna be running out of land to build homes, and so, I think that this ordinance brings up an important issue. Which is that maybe as a county, we need to be looking at perhaps giving a new look at some of our zoning rules and zoning ordinances in general. That's a discussion for another time, but would love to hear from our planning commission and our planning experts here in Washington County, some of their thoughts on that. And definitely, I as a JP would be really receptive to taking a new look at these zoning rules, which are been in place for a very long time, and maybe it's time to take a new look at them. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Stafford Rios, and I totally agree with you. Public comments. Public comments. Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Robert Dennis. Yes. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Jim Wilson. Yes. Butch Pond. Yes. Lance Johnson. Yes. Shannon Marty. Yes. Sean Simons. Yes. Bill Usry. Yes. Patrick Deacons. Yes. This ordinance passes.
All right, ordinance 11 passes. We'll go to item 12. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
And that'd be J.P. Wilson.
That we suspend the rules and move this to the second reading.
Second.
There's a motion to suspend the rules, move to a second reading, and second by J.P. Lemming. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, it passes. Council, will you read that one for a second?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
J.P. Wilson.
I move that we suspend the rules and move this to the third and final reading.
Second.
There's a motion to suspend the rules, move to a third and final, second by J.P. Lemming. Again, all in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Councilor, third and final.
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
J.P. Wilson.
The Boston Mountain Fire Group is trying to establish this new location, and it's on 8.4 acres, 4.8 acres. It's a 40 by 60 metal building, and they're only going to be using electricity at this point. It's not required to go to LSD, and I move the approval of the Boston Mountain Fire Station number 3 cup.
Second.
There's a motion to approve item 12, and the second by J.P. Pond. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Chandra Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Robert Dennis. Yes. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming,
Yes.
Jim Wilson,
Yes.
Butch Pond, Lance Johnson, Shannon Marty, Sean Simons, Bill Usry, Patrick Deacons. This ordinance passes.
Item 12 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. We'll move on to item 13. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
And J.P. Deacons? Okay, so that will just go on to our next month's meeting. Item 14, Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance ratifying a conditional use permit recommended for approval by the Planning and Zoning Board.
J.P. Deacons? Again, on his first reading, so that will just move on now to the June's meeting. Item 15, Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance authorizing the Sheriff's Department to transfer a chemical vent hood to the city of Prairie Grove, Arkansas.
And before I give it to you, J.P. Duncans, again, items on their first reading, there's no discussion. They just move to the next meeting unless there's a suspension of the rules. Just want to make sure for some our new citizens who may come by wondering why we didn't have any discussion about that. J.P. Duncan? Yes. J.P. Duncan,
Judge, I move that we take this to the second reading.
did that suspend the rule?
Suspend the rules and take it to the second reading.
Motion to suspend the rules and move to a second reading, seconded by J.P. Deacons. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, we'll go ahead, Council, and read that one for a second time.
An ordinance authorizing the Sheriff's Department to transfer a chemical vent hood to the city of Prairie Grove, Arkansas.
J.P. Duncan.
Judge, I move that we suspend the rules and take this to third and final reading.
Motion to suspend the rules, move to third and final, seconded by J.P. Deacons. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, Council, third and final.
An ordinance authorizing the Sheriff's Department to transfer a chemical vent hood to the city of Prairie Grove, Arkansas.
J.P. Duncan.
For those who weren't at the county services meeting, this is simply a transfer of property, and this is a way to do it legally. So the Sheriff's Department had a chemical vent hood they were no longer using. They essentially put out a feeler for any of the municipalities. Does anyone need a chemical vent hood? Prairie Grove raised their hand. So this is an opportunity for Washington County to provide a piece of equipment to Prairie Grove. So with that, Judge, I move that we pass item number, what is this, 15.
There's a motion to pass item 15, seconded by, who's that? J.P.
Wilson.
J.P. Dennis. Any discussion? J.P. Wilson. Any discussion? Any discussion? Public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke? Yes. Sam Duncan? Yes. Shonda Washington? Yes. Eva Madison? Yes. Robert Dennis? Yes. Suki Hires? Evelyn Rios Stafford? Yes. Willie Lemming? Yes. Jim Wilson? Yes. Butch Pond? Yes. Lance Johnson? Yes. Shannon Marty? Yes. Sean Simons? Yes. Bill Usry? Yes. Patrick Deacons? Yes. This ordinance passes.
All right, item 15 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 16, Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $21,000 from unappropriated reserves in the County General Fund 1,000 to the advertising and publications line item in the Election Commission budget 10001093040 for 2021.
J.P. Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is an appropriation ordinance. I move passage of item 16.1.
We have a motion by J.P. Deacons, second by J.P., was that Pond? Second by J.P. Pond. All in discussion?
I would just say that this is monies that we need to transfer to the Election Commission so they can publish notices in the papers and such about elections that are coming up. When possible, Ms. Price bills that back to whatever the sponsoring organization is, but we as a county have to front it on the front end. So we should get most of this money back after she bills it to the sponsoring organization. Thank you, Judge Wood.
All right, J.P. Deacons. J.P. Lemming. Okay. Any other discussion? Requires 10 votes on appropriation, so we'll go ahead with public comments. Any other public comments? No public comments. All right, Ms. Patty, we'll take the roll.
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deacon.
Yes.
This ordinance passes.
Ordinance number, item number 16 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. We'll go to item 17. Counselor, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance recognizing additional revenue in the amount of $10,492.29 in the AOC Juvenile Court Grant Fund and appropriating $10,492.29 from the AOC Juvenile Court Grant Fund 3519 to various line items in the AOC Juvenile Court Grant Budget 35190541 for 2021.
Thank you, Counselor. J.P. Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is a grant that the juvenile court gets every year. I move passage of item 17.1.
Got a motion to pass by J.P. Deacons, second by J.P. Lemming. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deacon.
Yes.
This ordinance passes.
Item 17 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 18, Counsel, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance anticipating additional revenue of $399,996 in the Drug Court Grant Fund and appropriating the amount of $399,996 from the Drug Court Grant Fund to the SAM HSA 2021-2022 grant budget for 2021.
Call it Sampson. I love it. This one is, again, J.P. Deacons. Oh, I just cut you off.
Thank you,
J.P.
Judge
Deacons.
Wood. This is another grant that Washington County is lucky enough to get annually. As you can see, this offsets some of the costs of the drug court, including salaries and other supplies. I move passage of item 18.1.
You got a motion to pass by J.P. Deacons. Again, second, who was that? J.P. Madison, Willing, J.P. Lemming. Discussion. Any discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deacons.
Yes.
This ordinance passes.
Item 18 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Want to make sure I ask, when you guys are seconding the motion, hit your button so I can kind of keep track. Will that help? That'll help me out. Thank you, guys. Item 19. Counsel, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $50,381.32 from the unappropriated reserves in the Animal Shelter Projects Fund, 1825, to various line items in the Animal Shelter Projects Budget, 0529, for 2021.
Thank you, Judge Wood. We've voted on this a few times as these funds make their way through the different line items. These are funds that the animal shelter raised through donations to purchase a new vehicle, a van, and these are the funds also to outfit it. It's appropriation ordinance, and I move passage of item 19.1.
You got J.P. Duncan.
Second.
All right. You got a motion and a second. Discussion. Discussion? Any discussion? Any public comments? Any public comments? Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke.
Yes.
Sam Duncan. Yes. Shonda Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Robert Dennis. Yes. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Jim Wilson. Yes. Butch Pond. Yes. Lance Johnson. Yes. Shannon Marty. Yes. Sean Simons. Yes. Bill Usry. Yes. Patrick Deakins.
Yes.
This ordinance passes.
Item 19 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. We'll go to item 20. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance to establish a special revenue to be called the American Rescue Plan Fund and to declare an emergency.
JP Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is the creation of a new line item account so that we can accept the American Rescue Plan funds. As you can see, I think Treasurer Hill expects those funds very directly, and so this is time sensitive. I would move passage of 20.1.
JP Madison. Oh, is that a second? This is on the second. Are you on second the motion? Oh, no, I'm sorry, I wanted to speak. Okay. Okay. There you go. All right, JP Ecke.
Second.
All right. Now, JP, discussion, JP Madison. Go ahead.
I think I have to be
There you go.
red. Okay, I think I figured out the green and red. I support this ordinance. I think, though, that what the emergency is talking about how we're going to spend the money. And we're talking about a lot of money to be spent with very specific directives. And I'm concerned that there was no discussion in the Budget Committee at all about how the money would be spent. But we're talking about receiving many millions of dollars very soon, and we have yet to have any discussion or any group that's discussed how to spend it. That concerns me. The other local governments that are anticipating receiving funds have formed committees, are talking about how to spend this money, are engaging with members of the community, and we need to be doing that. And so it's shocking to me that creating a line item in the budget is the emergency, not how to spend the money. And I'll just go ahead and put a plug in. We need to be looking at rural water in Washington County. There's places in the county that don't have water, and that infrastructure would be a fantastic use of this money. It wouldn't take all of it, nearly all of it. But LaJoyce Duncan, who's a longtime advocate for the county, who serves on the water board, has called me, and I'm lobbying on her behalf. But water and infrastructure in our county is critical. And if this money could fill those gaps, it would be huge for economic development and for the citizens of our county. But I hope we get moving on talking about how we're going to spend this money. Thanks.
Thank you, JP Madison, JP Rio Stafford, and then JP Deakins.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I'd encourage all of my colleagues and also members of the public as well to go to the Treasury Department's website at treasury.gov. And about 9 or 10 days ago, they finally published the long-awaited rules of how these funds can be spent and what they can be spent on. And it's a long read. You can spend this money on a lot of different things, but most of them are they're all COVID related. And as long as we're putting in plugs for things, one of the things I wanted to put in a plug for as well is one of the things that some of this money can be spent on is new and expanded childcare services. And we've had this discussion in other committees about jobs. We hear that there's a lot of employers who have job openings who can't fill those openings right now. And yet we have other people who are still out of work. And the folks who are still out of work are mostly women. And the reason for that is because we have still, because of COVID, a childcare crisis still. I've talked to some of the folks who run, started discussions with them who run advocacy and service groups focused around childcare here in Northwest Arkansas. And they're seeing that too. They're seeing the same thing. So definitely, I think that's something that we should be looking at. That's going to help that's going to help a lot of women in our county get back to work and help fill those jobs as well as to be able to have that help with childcare. Thank you.
Thank you, JP Rio. Staffer, JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I made a misnote a while ago. I need to make a motion to amend this ordinance. At the request of Councilor Harlan, he wants it to be designated an appropriation ordinance. He believes that would be in compliance with both state and federal laws, so I make a motion that we designate this an appropriation ordinance.
So that's to amend the ordinance that we just motioned in second to make it as opposed to emergency ordinance, making it an appropriation ordinance.
That's correct.
And that was, I got a motion then to amend the ordinance, making it an appropriation ordinance. Do we have a second? Second by JP Duncan. All in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, so now we'll have any other discussion then on this ordinance, this appropriation ordinance regarding the American Rescue Plan. Any other discussion? JP Madison?
I was actually trying to speak to the amendment. We need to strike the emergency clause.
Okay, that's what I was trying to do. So is there a particular language that we need, Counselor, to say it?
It should be an appropriation ordinance with no emergency clause, and then we'll just pass it like on one vote.
I agree with you.
Okay.
This is a form that came from the feds, I believe.
Okay, so JP Deacons, strike your, yes, let's read it as it's going to be amended or stated.
Read the entire ordinance?
No, just as it needs to be read as without the emergency.
An ordinance to establish a special revenue to be called the American Rescue Plan Fund.
Got it. All right, JP Deacons. All right, second? We have a second? And we have a motion and a second. All in favor? Those opposed? All right, any other discussion on the line, this particular item? And yes, I know the elected officials have come together and started talking about this. Am I on? Are we on? Yes. So we have had some discussions and with Treasurer Hill, with the anticipation, knowing that we'll get about, the anticipated dollars is about $46 million. It will be reduced to half, about $23 million this year, $23 million next year. The elected officials have been discussing and working toward what their priorities would look like. But again, we didn't get the guidelines until last week, and all the JPs should have received that. It's about 151 pages. Anyway, a lot of that is delineated of what it needs to be spent on and for. And again, clearly, we're going to be looking at our unincorporated areas, looking at each one of the elected officials and the work that they have or that they were anticipating to do in the coming years and see how we can use those monies for there. Springdale will be receiving about $20 million. Fayetteville will be receiving about $20 million. So I imagine they're having those same discussions about how they would start to begin to look at those monies. All that being said, this is good. We'll go ahead and look at the public for any comments that they would have. Any public comments?
Thank you, Judge. Kyle Smith, Dove Drive in Fayetteville, and it's exciting to hear y'all already talking about how this infusion of funding can benefit our community. While you are folding down the pages on your guidelines, water, yes. Childcare, yes. I believe it is also eligible to be used on rural broadband, which as a teacher is important to me as it provides students access to remote learning and homework resources and all of that. But it is also important to the job search and getting people back to work. You know that so much of the job process now is online, and much of our rural communities have limited access, whether it's through availability or expense. Anything you can do here to ease that burden and improve access would be an excellent use of this as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan.
Yes.
Shonda Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Robert Dennis. Yes. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deacons. This ordinance passes.
All right. Item 20 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 21. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance appropriating $93,000 from unappropriated reserves in the communication fund to various line items in the communication budget, 3014-0400 for 2021.
JP Deacons. JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is an appropriation ordinance. If you recall, these are some funds that the Sheriff's Department received for the liquidation of an aircraft, and they've agreed to use that money for body-worn cameras. I move passage of item 21.1.
JP Duncan.
Second.
We have a motion by JP Deacons, a second by JP Duncan. All in favor? Oh, discussion. Any discussion? All right. JP Lemming.
Josh, on your software, is that gonna be from now on, or is that a one-time deal?
I think Captain Augustine can
Answer that question.
It's Augustine, Washington County Sheriff's Office. What was the question?
The question, the $56,600, the software maintenance, is that gonna be, once you sign this contract and go, is that for now on every year?
It's a 5-year contract.
It's a 5-year contract, so this will be a 5-year deal every year. So that's gonna up the sheriff's budget next year.
It's a 5-year contract. It goes over, that covers 5 years.
That covers 5 years?
Yes.
Cool, okay, thank you.
Any other public comments? Any other discussion here? Let's go to public comments. Thanks, Todd. Public comments? All right, Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke. Sam Duncan. Chandra Washington. Eva Madison. Robert Dennis. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Willie Lemming. Jim Wilson. Butch Pond. Lance Johnson. Shannon Marty. Sean Simons. Bill Usry. Patrick Deacons. This ordinance passes.
Okay, item 21 passes. Thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 22, Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance increasing the salary of the county attorney and the county attorney budget for 2021.
JP Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. This is an appropriation ordinance. I believe it's important that we do this. I want to say that I think this is a first step in a lot of steps we're going to take over the coming year or so to evaluate employee compensation and bring it more competitive. I move passage of item 22.1.
Got a motion to pass 22. JP Duncan.
Second.
Second by JP Duncan. Discussion. JP Pine and then JP Lemming.
You might correct me if I'm mistaken, if my memory's not serving me correctly, but because the comments made earlier, I got to thinking about it. Actually, this ordinance for this raise, the last time this was brought before the court did come out of committee. So this has come out of personnel committee sometime in the past. It just didn't make it through the vote by the full quorum court. And that's basically all. If somebody would like to correct me, please do, but I think that's the way it turned out.
That's correct. Thank you, JP Pine. JP Lemming and then JP Ecke.
That's what I was gonna mention, that it needs to go through the right channels. It needs to go through the personnel committee as far as I'm concerned. And I think we're to table it until it does go through the committee. Thank you.
So you have a motion to table item 22. And the second, I don't know who's, was that JP Ecke? No. JP Ussery? and a second by J.P. Ussery. Is that all in favor? Discussion. Any discussion on the tabling? So we just move to a vote. Ms. Patty? This is to table item 22.
Lisa Ecke? No. Sam Duncan? No. Shonda Washington? Yes. Eva Madison? No. Robert Dennis? No. Suki Hires? Evelyn Rio Stafford? Yes. Willie Lemming? Jim Wilson? No. Butch Pond?
No.
Lance Johnson?
No.
Shannon Marty? No. Sean Simons? No. Bill Ussery? Yes. Patrick Deakins?
No.
I have 5 for, and 9 against, so it fails.
So it fails to table. All right, so we'll go back to the motion to pass and second it. Discussion. J.P. Ecke?
Thank you, Judge. The reason it didn't go, as serving as personnel chairman, the reason it didn't come through personnel is because it didn't have to. The process of county personnel issues is if there's a job evaluation salary adjustment or a, which we call JSAP. There wasn't a job title change. There wasn't a grade change, seeing that this is a salary, and it didn't fall within that parameter of review for the JSAP committee. Therefore, it didn't go from JSAP to the Personnel Committee for review. And that is why it didn't have to come through personnel. It went straight to Budget and Finance because this is an appropriation ordinance, not a personnel job change, title change for the job evaluation assessment program that we have for all county employees. So that's why this is appropriate. It followed the channels, and it didn't need to come through personnel. So I thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Ecke, J.P. Rio Stafford, and then J.P. Ussery.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I know this, even though this ordinance didn't have to go through the Personnel Committee, I would feel much better about making a decision on this after we finish the process that we've started discussing in the Personnel Committee, which is the fact that our county pay grades haven't been updated or changed in 5 years, since 2016. And many of our, county rank and file employees, who are making much lower salaries, I think, deserve to have that kind of consideration. And I think that, I think that skipping ahead to one of the highest paid salaries in the county ahead of that, I feel like it sends the wrong message. I feel like it really, we got to think about the morale of our county employees, especially at a time when, there's all these job openings and people have choices right now. And if they don't feel valued as employees of the county, that they're, that they haven't had a consideration in 5 years, I'm concerned about that. And so, my question for you, Judge Wood, usually a salary adjustment like this happens when either someone is first coming into a job or they're thinking about leaving a job, and you want to keep them, so you're giving them a counteroffer. I know this as a small business owner. So my question, I guess, for you right now is why now? Why are we considering this now, and why are we considering this before adjusting our pay grades for the rest of the employees? Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Rios. Before I go to you, J.P. Pine, this was brought up before you came on the court, so you don't know, but this was brought in, it was about moving the market for the county attorney. It was not a pay raise for an individual, it's about the market and what the market rate was. We presented that, Johansson, the Johansson Group put that together. Oh, I'm sorry. The Johansson brothers put that together and presented that to the court. The court passed, but it was not anything. I wanted that to happen, to present it and bring it up to market rate. So it's been a couple of years since this has been put on the agenda for the court to move on. So that's why it was brought back. It was, in fact, it was even brought to the attention to split it last year, and they didn't, and so here it is again. So I'm just doing what we alleged and started to do back in 19, when it was brought to the court. J.P. Pine. There you go.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I might not have made myself quite plain before. I simply made the statement because there was such concern about it that this has, I suppose that was last year, whenever it was, this did come through Personnel Committee and it actually passed.
That's right.
It's so whether it's never come through a Personnel Committee or not is not the question. And I would not argue with J.P. Ecke. I really don't believe it's necessary that it come through committee. This is an issue that lies within your bailiwick, and I intend to vote for this ordinance to pass. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Pine. J.P. Madison.
I think just JP Essery has had his hand up for
Oh.
a while, so I'll defer to him.
J.P. Ussery and then J.P. Madison.
Thank you very much, Judge. This has been a very difficult thing for me. I've talked to a number of people, and almost all the people that I've talked to, the timing on this is just not right as far as it appears. I think that I have nothing against this whatsoever. I just think that it should be included in the budget this year, and it should go through the process with all the things that are going on right now, and with all the people that the needs appear to be much greater than this need. I would like to see this go through the regular process like anything else and be included in the budget, especially at the beginning of the year, whenever we were told by the Finance Committee chairman that we need to be sure to get all these things taken care of in the budget system regularly instead of bringing it up as a separate issue after the budgets have already been passed for the year. And that's why I'm struggling with this. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Ussery. J.P. Madison.
Thank you, Judge. I just want to say that the county attorney's salary in 2017 was $70,000. And so since then, in those 4 years, it has gone up to $85,240, which is a 22% increase in that time period. I don't think there's any other county employee that has received a 22% increase that would match with that. And I know we're saying that we're going to address other salaries later. If as an employee sitting there seeing 22% in the past 4 years and seeing an additional 23% now, I have a hard time believing that there's going to be a revisiting of all the salaries. I don't disagree that that should be fully a part of the budget process, that we talk about that, but I don't understand why one position was singled out for one market review, and then the market review itself is a little questionable. It was compared to elected positions. But I'll just say that this would make our county attorney the highest paid county attorney in the state, and it would make the salary greater than our Secretary of State. Government work is not where you go to make a lot of money. I think our county employees know that. but I can't vote for giving someone such a significant pay increase when we are not looking at our other employees and doing the same. Thanks, Judge.
Thank you, J.P. Madison, J.P. Dennis, and then J.P. Ecke.
Thank you, Judge. I'll try to stay on track, and I even made some notes for that reason. And I'll kind of set things up a little bit for you. I was 2 terms on as JP, and then I was off for a term, and then back on this term. And so I've seen quite a few different things happen sitting in this chair. And so, and I'm getting older, and maybe I don't remember every detail, but I do remember some of it. And now this is the only time that I have ever heard in my life that the public gets to sit in on personnel job performance and affect the outcome. I worked for one of the largest food companies in America, or in the world, and we had brackets, and you made within that bracket lowest or highest midterm, and that went all the way to the CEO. But I can guarantee you one thing: if we were to talk about whoever made what, we would be called in and we'd be reprimanded. And so I was always under the influence that some things in life were a little bit private. Of course, I know we're in public life and we have to publish everything. And I also know that when we close this speech or speaking, then we'll open it up to public. And then I want people at home to understand that when the public comes forward and says something, they get to say it and go back and sit down, and they're never held accountable for it. And we cannot challenge them from this chair. So I'd like to make that comment so that the people at home understand, because they say, Robert, I can't believe you let that go. Well, we have to let it go. We legally have to let it go. And so you can come up here in a few minutes and say all these different things. And I remember coming to a meeting when I was running for JP, and I heard the same discussion. And then after that, at the end, towards the end of that discussion, I got to hear the public talk about Brian Lester as if he didn't exist, sitting here. I heard things that in court you'd probably be held accountable for. And I think that's wrong. I think it's terribly wrong. And I think it'll be terribly wrong when we hear it again here in a few minutes. And I think it's just wrong to do that to people and to allow that to happen to our county employees. If you don't like someone, that is not part of the raise process. We don't discriminate, person, color, and I've heard a lot of things said. Now, I'd probably I'd get a lot, I won't say who said what, but I heard, no, I just don't like him. You know, he makes too much. He does not work very hard. Adam such as does not, such as this. And so anyway, what I do remember, though, about the story is that Brian was hired at a lower amount with the promise of getting more. And he did that to help the county out. I also remember that the time came around to give him a raise, and we didn't give him a raise because things were tight. And he went ahead and worked through that. While a citizen, not a, oh, I told you about that. You know, and the example I would use is school boards go into executive session when they want to talk about sensitive personnel and sensitive raises. And it's quite common to go into executive session and have a conversation about it. I do think that it'd be nice to have it, in that setting would be in the personnel committee. I do think that would be better to have it there. You have fewer people, and you could go into an executive session and actually discuss it. And the things that should be asked is he doing his job? What is his performance evaluation? Not what do I think? What do I see? I don't like the way he does this, and I don't like the way he does that. He doesn't turn the mic on fast enough for me to be recognized. Those are things that you don't like. Those aren't things that you judge a person's ability to do the job for.
And things like, okay, he's filling in for chief of staff. Oh, all right, that would be part of his evaluation. But do we get up here and champion everything for and then turn around and champion everything against? I think not. I think you decide what you think you should pay for. You should have a bracket. You should post that bracket. But you don't have to know what he makes in that bracket. I'm talking about anybody. You know, I could use the sheriff. You know, the sheriff, here's the low, here's the high. You know, it's a bracket for you to know. And then if you feel bad about it, you work harder and get to be the judge, the sheriff. You know, you don't just quit. As the one email we got, someone just quit because they thought it was so disgusting to work for the county. Well, what are you doing to help make it better? So, but once again, I'll say I'm just baffled by how we talk about someone's individual performances, how we talk about how much money they make or don't make, how they work or don't work, whether we like or dislike. I just think those things are wrong. And when I judge you, I'm going to judge you by what you do, not because I just don't like you. So, and I will say this, and someone else will remember, but I don't remember. I think it was 2016, we talked about it the other night, personnel, and talked about the librarian. How much it was it that the librarian was given, an assistant librarian was given how much increase at one time? Does anybody remember? 17,000? And I think we got an email chewed us out about that, but she said that Brian Lester got the 17,000 and it was a assistant librarian. And so, again, another one of those false things that gets put out there that everybody thinks is true just because it was published. Everything on the internet's not true, guys. It's not. So I will support this. You know, maybe we can find an attorney that wants his job worse. I don't know. We've got another fine one sitting in the chair over there. But if the job pays a lot, a whole lot of people will want it. If it doesn't pay much, nobody really cares. Nobody wants it. So start there with him, and I hope we can give all county employees a good raise. I really do. And I do think that we should study it out and study and have the brackets set. Set the brackets. If I wanted to be vice president of the company I worked for, I knew what they paid. And I could work for that and towards that. So, sorry for the preaching. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Dennis. J.P. Ecke, and then J.P. Johnson.
Thank you, Judge. Well said. Well said, Justice. As chairman of the Personnel Committee, members of the committee will hear this over and over and over and over and over again. But creating a vision, my vision for Washington County was ensuring process and procedural change initiatives that align with where we see Washington County's future. A simple positive measurement system to recruit and retain talented, quality employees. I think we all remember that. That is our goal. That's our mission. What do we need to do to recruit and retain employees? Since I believe Attorney Lester has been our county attorney, every year he's been sidestepped and sidestepped and sidestepped. And I think this is the year that we need to say we're not going to treat our employees that way, not any of y'all. And if it has to start with County Attorney Lester, then let it be with him. And the rest, the salary range adjustment that we're looking at to bring up everybody, so that way we can recruit and retain talented, quality employees. JDC, we're looking at that. We want quality employees, and we know the value of your work. So I am supporting this because I support Washington County and our vision of where we want to go. And if his department head is saying, yes, this is the evaluation that I'm giving him, this is what it needs to be, then I respect that. And I'm voting yes. Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, J.P. Ecke. J.P. Johnson.
Judge, I'll try to be brief. First of all, I don't look at this as an evaluation of our current county attorney's performance in any way, shape, or form. That's not the job of this court. What I look at is we've got a county judge and a sheriff, and between the two of you, you control and manage 80% of the budget, about 40% each. If you look at what the top 4 or 5 managers in the sheriff's department make versus what the top 4 or 5 managers in the judge's department make, there's a significant disparity. And it all happened in December of 2018. I was sitting out there and I remember the meeting well. I think we need to approve this motion.
Any other discussion? Public comments? Public comments?
Thank you, Judge. JP's, Kyle Smith, Dove Drive, Fayetteville. I apologize I was not able to deliver my remarks to the Finance Committee in person the other night, but I appreciate JP Rios Stafford for reading those. I saw some of it quoted in the paper and realized that you had received those anyway. In that, I wrote about the importance of competitive market pay for attracting the best talent. I stand by all of that, but I would like to remind you that this position, when last time it was vacant, was not posted. There was no competition. There was no search for the most qualified applicant. Now comes a repeated proposal for a very substantial raise in the name of a competitive salary increase. It's a 23% increase. That's not a cost of living increase or a years of service step raise. It's a huge merit raise. You should treat it like so. Let's do a full performance review. JP Dennis, private corporate policies for wage pay confidentiality, those are tools for wage suppression. They keep people from talking about what they make so that they can be paid less. It's important here in the public sphere that we do discuss these things openly. We like to know how our public tax dollars are spent. So let's talk about a performance review. Is the county attorney living up to your expectations? How many times has he been asked to defend you in court and your decisions here? How many times has he been successful? How many times has the county attorney failed to respond on your behalf? What other services is he providing and how effectively is he doing so? I believe a thorough review of that record would indicate against passage of this ordinance. But if you do decide to vote for this appropriation, I hope you will all be very clear on whether this is compensation for his role as Mr. County Attorney, as Mr. Chief of Staff, or as Mr. Party Chair. If this is how you decide to spend $19,000 of our money this year and every year forward, I hope you set performance expectations before the next time. It's beyond time that people get our money's worth from our county attorney. Thank you.
Public comments? Public comments?
My name's Lou Reed Sharp, and I'm from Springdale. And I just want to say that JP Dennis is right. I mean, when we were in the hospital system and they absorbed all of our nursing staff and we were so underpaid, what happened is we worked with the Johansson brothers and you did a agency-wide review and you came up with brackets for certain jobs and worked within that. You didn't selectively pick and choose what you were doing. And so I think, that's why you have the Johansson brothers and do these wage and salary increases very much like you do cost of living. And so I think it just seems like that is missing in this process. So when everybody needs a raise, you have to look at the whole picture and look at brackets for individual jobs. and then it's all done as a group, and then you phase it in depending on cash flow and stuff like that, but it's all planned out in a regular system. So it just seems like that part is missing in this one. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Reed. Public comments.
Thank you, Judge Wood. Beth Koger, Fayetteville. My thoughts are kind of scattered here, but first of all, as to what J.P. Dennis said, I think that if you went into an executive discussion, an executive session to discuss a raise, it would be violating FOIA. I study FOIA a lot, so I think that's why you don't, besides it just needs to be discussed in public because it's taxpayer money. As to another comment about Mr. Lester being overlooked, just quickly, I tried to calculate this. If my calculations are correct, he's already received a $15,000 raise, or they're close to that, so he's not being overlooked. And I'm kind of surprised that this is coming now, because many of you that are sitting around this horseshoe, I've heard you more than one time say when something like this has come up before you that wasn't discussed in the budget, your very first comment has been, why wasn't this discussed in budget? So I just put that out there because I'd like to know that too. I don't know why it didn't come up in budget last year. And also as to whether or not, as to addressing the salaries or increasing salaries of other employees that we talked about in the road department and others, I want to remind this group that last year when we were discussing the budget and the department heads were told to present you their budgets for this coming year, no one told them that they had to include in those budgets raises for their own departments, their employees, if they wanted to give those raises. Yet, when it came here, several JPs said, if they want to give a raise to employees, let them take it out of their budgets. Well, they couldn't do that because they'd already cut their budgets as much as they could. So I'm kind of worried that might not happen because it hasn't happened in the past. I think that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Koger. Public comments. Public comments. Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke? Yes. Sam Duncan?
Yes.
Shonda Washington? No. Eva Madison? No. Robert Dennis? Yes. Suki Hires? Evelyn Rios Stafford? No. Willie Lemming? No way. Jim Wilson? Yes. Butch Pond? Yes. Lance Johnson? Yes. Shannon Marty? Yes. Sean Simons? Yes. Bill Ussery? No. Patrick Deakins?
Yes.
Have 9 for, and 5 against. So it'll go on next month.
It'll go to next month's meeting, all right. Item 23. Council, will you read that one by title only?
An ordinance expressing appreciation for county employees working in the county detention center. Excuse me, this is the updated one. This is the one that he signed. An ordinance expressing appreciation for county employees working in the county detention centers during COVID and appropriating $297,865.81 from the Coronavirus Relief Fund to various line items in various budgets for 2021.
J.P. Deacon.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I believe everyone was sent an updated ordinance by Ms. Patty, and you also have a hard copy in front of us. I have some amendments that I need a motion to make on this particular ordinance. So I make a motion we amend, starting on line 14, the amount of $297,865.81 needs to be updated to $297,895.81. That amount also needs to be amended on line 39 of Article 1. And then if you would allow me the liberty, I would like to strike lines in the original ordinance 43 through 63 and replace them with lines 43 through 61 of this updated ordinance that you have in front of you. So what I want everybody to know is this doesn't change the intent or the mechanics of this ordinance. What it is with consultation of Comptroller Worthen, he preferred that we use other compensation line items versus regular salary line items to track them differently.
Okay, so there's a motion to amend, make sure I can track that, item 14, line 14, 297,895, 81. Same thing in line 40, 297.
39, I believe, 39.
39, you're right. 297,895, 81. And then to strike 43, lines 43 through 63, and replace them with the updated version, line 43 to 61.
Yes, sir.
We have a motion and a second. All in discussion. Discussion. JP Madison and then JP Washington.
So is the amendment the copy we've been given, or is that, there are additional amendments? Okay, well, when we're so intent on having things go through committee and making sure they go through committee, it's a little ironic that they get amended after they've been to committee before they come to quorum court. I thought the purpose of the committee was to discuss all the details and get it right before you came to us, but I think that things should be, if they're not vetted in committee before they get here, then they shouldn't get here. Thanks.
JP Madison, thank you. JP Washington and then JP Ussery.
Thank you, Judge Wood. First of all, I would just like to commend Sheriff Helder as well as the rest of his staff for their response to the COVID-19 pandemic in our county jail. They did an outstanding job, and I want to publicly say that. So while I do believe that we should express our appreciation to those employees that are mentioned in this ordinance, as I also mentioned in the Budget and Finance Committee, I think that there are other county employees that should be rewarded and appreciated as well. And so having said that, I move that we send this back to committee and give those other department heads an opportunity to submit their appreciation for their employees. I would just like for us to take a second look at this. I think that it sends the wrong message if we choose to reward a certain number of county employees and not consider all. There are some people who literally came to work every single day and kept this county running. They risked their lives, they risked the health and safety of their family members, and I think they should be appreciated as well. So I move that we send this back to committee and allow other department heads an opportunity to submit their appreciation for their employees as well.
So we have a motion by JP Washington to take item 23 and take it back to the Finance and Budget Committee. Second by, is that you, Bill Ussery? Is that JP Madison? Okay. And a second by JP Madison. All in favor? Aye. Those opposed? No. Ms. Patty, let's do the roll.
Lisa Ecke. No. Sam Duncan. No. Shonda Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Robert Dennis. No. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rios Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Jim Wilson. No. Butch Pond. No. Lance Johnson. No. Shannon Marty. No. Sean Simons. No. Bill Ussery. No. Patrick Deakins. No. It fails.
Okay, so we're still having discussion then on the item 23, the amended 23. JP Ussery, then JP Madison, and then JP Dennis.
Thank you very much, Judge. I appreciate all the work that went into this, both by the Sheriff's Department and all the different people that put this together. And of course, we really appreciate all the people that put their lives in danger
to protect us and to take care of the things that they had no choice but to do. I am sure that there will be, with the COVID money that's coming, there will be additional money for some of the other departments. And I want to make sure that the coroner gets involved in that, because I talked to him this week and he said that he was involved in 100% of the COVID cases in Northwest Arkansas. And he said that early on that our Washington County, we led the state in coming up with protocols and all the things. So at the hospital, they went in and they disinfected everything, so there was no worry about the relatives, all the other things that happened to people in the hospital. They did an incredible job during this, and the coroner is not able to be here tonight, but he asked that I pass that on to everyone, that the work that they did and that they're continuing to do. And again, I'm sure there'll be more discussion, and we want to make sure he is included as we move forward with compensating these people. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Ussery, J.P. Madison, and then J.P. Dennis.
I thought we needed to vote on the amendment. I thought we were on that.
We are discussing.
The amendment? Did we vote on the amendment?
I can't remember, did we? Okay.
Okay, that's why I had spoken just
Okay.
to the amendment, and then we sort of shifted. But if we're
All right.
speaking to the motion,
Go ahead.
I fully agree that our detention officers deserve a bonus. But to say that we don't have the money to give to the other employees when we have $4 million, why would we push the coroner's folks off until later when all we had to do was add them? I don't understand that. I don't understand what's the point in just rewarding two departments to the exclusion of all others. We have $4 million. We could reward all of our employees, because all of them, even the ones who worked from home, because maybe they couldn't work in the building because of a medical condition. Let me tell you, for somebody that's been at home for a year with my 10-year-old working in the same room while he's done his social studies, that's been hard. The whole year has been hard on everyone. And I think that, and I know that there's been a unique risk that's posed to the folks that work at the detention center. But how has that risk not been the same for the coroner's employees? And I just think this is very short-sighted, and it's yet again, we're sending the wrong message to our employees. I will support this tonight, but I'm disappointed that we're not making an effort to give equal treatment to all of our employees. We're just singling out certain ones, and that's disappointing. Thanks.
J.P. Madison, thank you. J.P. Dennis.
Thank you, Judge. I'm going to let the cat out of the bag here. I've already spoken to the Lisa Ecke, the chairman for the Personnel Committee, and I've asked that this be put on our agenda and to discuss all departments, each and every department, each and every person on Washington County employee, and we will go through the entire same system on the Personnel Committee that they did for the sheriffs. So therefore, I will vote for this, because let's vote for this, get it done. As I heard the severance, is that the word? Let's do it separate, and then now let's do the Personnel Committee's job is to look at everybody. And so we will start that at the next meeting. So therefore, I will vote for this, and I will stay with my promise that we, the Personnel Committee, will look at every single department. And I agree very much with what J.P. Ussery said about the coroners. I mean, who was closer to it than they were? But the Sheriff's Department did live with it as well. And so, but I think that we don't know about every department. I see Kyle Sylvester sitting up there, and Bobby. We need to get with them and have them tell us, who do you want to give a bonus to? Who do you want, let's talk about it, all the department managers. And that's what the Personnel Committee's for, is to go and visit with each one of them. And so I'm for this, but I'm also for the Washington County employees. Thank you.
J.P. Ecke, and then J.P. Lemming.
Okay, thank you, Judge. Judge, I think part of this is a failure to communicate and understand the intent of this ordinance. This is a phase one of honoring those that risk their health and safety every day, and that's what law enforcement did. These were the frontline people. And from what I understand, this is to acknowledge and honor and compensate them, phase one. And then there are those other employees that were going to be looked at, but I don't think they were ever intended to exclude any employees. This is just the first one, and it was those that risk their lives every day, 24 hours a day, and these are them. So where the miscommunication came from, that the other employees were being dismissed or not qualified or whatever for this COVID money, I'm not sure where that failure to understand came from, but please be reassured that we're going to look at everybody, and there are going to be parameters and understanding, but this is just the first phase, and I'm supporting this. Thank you, Judge.
JP, thank you, JP Ake, JP Lemming, and then JP Washington, and then JP Rio Stafford. What's the point of order? Go ahead. True, that's correct. So point of order is correct. Ms. Patty, can we go ahead and do a roll on the passage of the amendment as read?
Lisa Ecke? Yes. Sam Duncan?
Yes.
Shonda Washington? Eva Madison? Robert Dennis? Yes. Suki Hires? Evelyn Rio Stafford? Yes. Willie Lemming? No. Jim Wilson? Yes. Butch Pond?
Yes.
Lance Johnson?
Yes.
Shannon Marty? Yes. Sean Simons? Yes. Bill Usry? Yes. Patrick Deacon?
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay. Discussion. I can't remember who's in the queue. JP Washington?
Thank you, Judge Wood. I would just like to address something. It seems like we're hearing that there's a lot of misinformation about this, and I'm just a little confused because we're not allowed to talk about this outside of being in an open forum. So when I raised this same concern that I had tonight, I said the same thing last week, and not one person on that committee said, this is the first step. Not one person said, oh, we have plans to reward the rest of our county employees. So how are we to make informed decisions if we don't know all of the information? So I don't think that this is a case of misinformation because that never was said. My first time hearing that this is a plan to do this in phases was tonight in this meeting. So I would just encourage that if there are people on the court who have knowledge of other things that we all don't have, to let us know so that we can make an informed decision. So then it doesn't look like that we're intentionally just not supporting, that we're just intentionally I don't know. It's just, I think I'm just a little frustrated. I'm sorry, but I just wish that if people had all the information, that information could be shared with all members of the court. We have no way of knowing if you don't tell us. We don't know what someone has requested to be put on an agenda. We don't know anything about phase reports. All we know is what is presented before us, and what was presented in the Budget and Finance Committee meeting was this ordinance to express our appreciation for only the county employees who worked in the county detention centers. And throughout that whole discussion, nothing different was said. So I would just like to encourage all of us to make sure that all of us have all of the information so that we all can make informed decisions.
Thank you, JP Washington, JP Deacons, and then JP Lemming.
Thank you, Judge Wood. I wanted to, of course, speak to the ordinance. You know, I guess it's fair to talk a little bit about the symbiosis of where this came from. This came from conversations that I had with Judge Wood, and then I had a conversation with Sheriff Helder. What I was trying to do was, you know, I'd watch the news. We see an industry that the frontline workers have gotten bonuses both in healthcare and private industry, and so I sought out, I sought to identify the county employees that I thought were our most frontline, if you will. And through those conversations, the the people who came up with our detention officers, both in the juvenile detention center and the Washington County Correction Center, or the detention center. And the reason that is I want everybody to please understand, my goal is not to exclude anyone or overlook anyone. There's a lot of bright ideas being brought up here. There's a lot of questions being asked. Everybody on this horseshoe has the same status I do to go talk, get questions answered, and come up with new ideas. But let's not lose sight of the fact that these individuals faced unique risks by their very job description and their responsibilities. They're required to be within confined spaces in close contact with people they're not related to, they don't even work around, they're completely foreign to them. And, in that environment, I think there are increased risks. Sheriff Helder told me something that really hit me that I didn't think about. If you're a nurse in a hospital, you have training in infectious disease, mitigation techniques, and you have access to a lot of tools and PPE. The detention center officers did not have that type of training before COVID. They're learning that stuff real time in the trenches day to day while it's there right there in their faces. And I want us to please appreciate that. And then finally, I think about this a lot. I was speaking about this with my wife. It's one thing now that we understand so many of the risks of COVID-19. We understand a lot more about the disease a year out. But last year, in March, when everything was getting crazy and the COVID was raging, there was a lot of unknowns. And I got to stay in my house and work on my laptop. Those individuals, those men and women went down to that detention center or to that JDC day in and day out and did their jobs. And it's not even that they're exposed. The positive cases were a reality in the detention center. We know that. And then what do these individuals do? Not only do they cover what their usual responsibilities are, they're working overtime. They're covering extra shifts as their team members are out with exposures and things like that. So, let's not lose sight of who we're helping here, who we want to reward. So all of this was vetted out with the judge's approval and with the sheriff and both of their input. I'm very comfortable in saying that. So yes, I very much support this, of course. I want us to do this tonight. I think it's the right thing to do as we explore other opportunities to reward our employees. I think that's completely appropriate, but tonight we can't take away from how important this is right now. Thank you, Judge Wood.
Thank you, J.P. Deacons. J.P. Lemming.
We talk a lot about our employees, and we need them, and they're doing a good job, and they've done a good job, and they need to be awarded. I believe every one of them needs to be awarded. But we need to back up, too, when we get all this money from the COVID stuff, that there's 18 volunteer fire departments out here with about 2,200 people in them, and we've got City of Fayetteville and City of Springdale fire departments. And a lot of them guys never get to just y'all calling and saying thank you for your service. And a lot of volunteer fire departments are there way before the police get there, and way before the medical people get there. And a lot of us buy PPE out of our own pockets. And, some of this COVID money needs to go toward them volunteer fire departments to help them recover their monies that was spent and to show appreciation for everything that they've done. Because they save the county a lot of money in your ISO ratings, a lot of money in just everything that is volunteers. And each one of you JPs ought to call your fire chiefs in your areas and just tell them we appreciate them. If that's all we're going to give them, or all we're going to thank them. But I've been on Lincoln's for 40 years, and I don't think I've ever had a judge or a JP walk in our fire station and say, hey, guys, y'all's doing a good job. And this COVID deal has really tested a lot of fire departments in Washington County that we really do need to appreciate them. And when we get some of this big money, we need to be talking to them about something that they may need to help them get by. So I want all of our county employees to be awarded for putting up with COVID. COVID has been a pain in everybody's ruckus. And I feel like we need to do it all, or we don't need to do any. But I will support our employees getting a bonus through and through for everyone. But I've got a hard time just doing it for certain ones right now. So thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Lemming. Public comments. Public comments.
Tim Helder. I live in West Fork, Arkansas. I would like to speak to this, and I'm very appreciative for JP Deacon's work and others that have contacted me individually through the whole COVID pandemic. But I think that if I could just lay out a little bit of this to help everybody understand, and I think you understand, and I get it. I'd love for all my employees to get a bonus, all right? I mean, that would add about 150 just from my organization. But everybody's job is different. So if we'll go back to March, April, when this started hitting, the judge, myself, and all the elected officials came together, the full-timers, and started looking at the financial impact that COVID was going to have. We imposed, self-imposed hiring freezes. We worked through this thing with less people than we had when it started. Currently, I'm 29 down in the detention center. And with everything that's gone on, let alone COVID, but just public sentiment, we're having a heck of a time drawing applicants, getting quality people hired. It's a terrible time to be in law enforcement, let alone working in a detention center. So during that time, we still got positions frozen. And it was my promise to you all that I would not come back to get those released until we felt it was time. And you know, it's just around the corner, probably when the courts open up full-fledged and we start really running again. But it may not matter if I can't get them hired, okay? So just to let you know, we're way short, just about 30. So during that time, whenever we started really figuring out that COVID was gonna be so impactful on the jail, obviously we let a lot of our detainees go, the ones that were older, the ones that were medically, they were gonna be most impacted. And we tried to do it in the most efficient and with public safety in mind. We got all that done. But one of the things that I recognized early on was the impact it was gonna have on our employees. And then I heard the governor's office and through many states where they were gonna incentivize our healthcare workers for what they had to go through. Well, and I agree. And I'm on a hospital board. You know, I love our nurses. I love our doctors. I love everybody that works in our medical world. But to go back to what JP Deacon said, training is paramount. They know what they're doing. They have the best equipment. They know how to use it. They know how to. I've got pictures of some of my employees wearing hazmat suits, wearing a backpack fogger, going through our jail, not one time a day, but about 10 times a day. I've got, anyway, they're wearing their uniform, the majority of them, and they're wearing N95 mask, rubber gloves. No training other than what we could get them on the fly. We worked hand in hand with CDC, the health department, trying to stay up to speed with what we were dealing with. Remember our population that we're dealing with within the jail. They don't take care of themselves. They never go to the doctor. The majority are going to come in probably exposed to COVID or have it. We were able to set up with our reduction in population, quarantine barracks, and we were the first in the state to avail ourselves to the rapid test so that whenever our first quarantine block was going to be released into general population, we used those tests. Guess what? All of them, with the exception of one, was positive. Our employees have been in there every day working with these people. But we were able to catch them in quarantine, and we did everything right. Protocols were followed, but we still, everybody, like I wrote the numbers down. We had over 350 detainees to date that have tested positive. We've had 75 employees test positive. I don't know what everybody else, all the elected officials, what exposure they've had and what their positivity rates are, but I've got moms and I've got people that are caring for their grandparents. I've got going home to their kids, afraid, not knowing what they're going to be exposed to. And look, they had no choice. This was their job. 24 hours a day, 12-hour shifts, coming in and dealing with an invisible virus that could likely kill them. And I don't know how you put a dollar value on that, but I know that when I approached the governor's office, the Sheriff's Association, AAC, early on when the nurses and the healthcare workers were recognized and given incentives, we were shut down. Then came the vaccine availability. We originally were in Group 1A, law enforcement, all of law enforcement, to receive the vaccine, first off, we got knocked down like 2 levels. Of course, I went nuts, and I went right back to the same people. Went to the governor's office, Department of Health, everybody, and just saying, what is going on? I mean, we are in the trenches. We did get bumped back up. And Judge, I know that you were helpful in that. And so we were able to get the vaccines, and we're vaccinating everybody in the jail now. But folks, all I can tell you is I appreciate all of our employees, and I appreciate what you're saying. My patrol officers have been entering houses on a daily basis and working shorthanded. But this is a different issue. These are people that are in a confined environment with constant exposure. That's all I can tell you, and I certainly appreciate the ordinance. I appreciate the thought. I will solidly get behind discussions about all of our employees getting follow-up bonuses, but please don't pass on this one. This is so important. This is so important to the people that have been doing the job. And you want to talk about a thankless job, that's detention, okay? So anyway, thanks for your time. I appreciate you.
Thanks, Sheriff. JP Duncan?
Has a motion been made with the amendment?
Yes, yes. And we just wanted the public comments on that, so it's about to go to vote. Pardon me? We need a motion to pass as amended. Oh, that's right. That's right. We got there's a motion to pass.
That's all Deacons, and I'll take the second.
There's a motion to pass the amended ordinance, and a second by JP Duncan. Okay. And no further public comments. And again, I would say, piggybacking on the sheriff, that clearly everything he said about the adult detention center, the same thing is true for the juvenile detention center. And the miss on both the sheriff and my part is not saying the coroners to you, Patrick Deacons. And I visit with the coroner quite regularly, and every day that's a high risk. So we definitely need to make sure you guys go back to the drawing board and personnel and pull that all in. We're done with public comments. Ms. Patty, will you take the roll?
But 12 minutes didn't go by.
We were doing public comments. You got a brief one, Ms. Coker? Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I just
Go ahead,
thought it
Ms.
was.
Coker. Go ahead. Tell us who you are and where you're from.
Okay, Beth Coker, Fayetteville. I just have a couple of comments. I want to kind of back up what J.P. Washington said. This is also, tonight's the first time I had heard that you were looking at other employees, and I'm glad to hear that. That's good, but it would have saved a lot of trouble to have known that. Sorry. And also, with regard to that the JPs have been told that they should go seek out people and get information, I don't see why that can't be done in public. Why can't we have the department heads and people come here and the JPs ask, and we have those discussions in public instead of each JP going to wherever they go? That would save time for everyone, and it would make the process transparent and would build trust with the public. Thank you, Judge Wood, for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, J.P. Coker. Thank you, Ms. Coker. Ms. Patty?
Lisa Ecke. Yes. Sam Duncan. Yes. Shonda Washington. Yes. Eva Madison. Yes. Robert Dennis. Yes. Suki Hires. Evelyn Rio Stafford. Yes. Willie Lemming. Yes. Jim Wilson. Yes. Butch Pond. Yes. Lance Johnson. Yes. Shannon Marty. Yes. Sean Simons. Yes. Bill Usry. Yes. Patrick Deacon.
Yes.
This ordinance passes.
Ordinance passes. Item 23, thank you, Ms. Patty. Item 20, where are we, 4? Oh, committee reports. Let's see who we have. Let's go with County Services. J.P. Duncan.
The committee report was in their packet. Thank you.
Thank you, J.P. Duncan. Finance and Budget, J.P. Deacons.
Thank you, Judge Wood. The report's in the packet.
Thank you, J.P. Deacons. Jails Committee, Jails, Law Enforcement, and Courts, J.P. Johnson. Did not meet, okay, that's right, you said that. And then Personnel, J.P. Ecke.
Chairwoman Ecke had to jump out, but she said the report's in the
The
packet.
reports in the package. With that, J.P. Dennis. Police Week.
And I think that one thing they did was read all the names, and I wanted to read Trooper Lewis P. Bryant.
J.P. Bryant's son.
And I'd like to thank the Sheriff's Office. I thought it was a fantastic memorial. Thought y'all did a great job. Thank you.
Excellent. Appreciate you guys. Meeting adjourned.
And the Lincoln Fire Department.
I know, I'll have to talk to Dwight, I couldn't get it to come on.
Don't talk to me with a mask on, ma'am, I can't understand you.